This week's episode of We Need to Talk is brought to you by our good friends at FanTeam. FanTeam is fantasy football with a big old difference, a £1 million difference. Ridiculous. The winner of FanTeam this year takes home 200,000 quid. 200k. And if you do think you're going to miss the first game week, don't worry about it. Late registration is open until game week 4. So you can enter at game week 4 and they'll give you 95% of the average player's points tally at game week 4. So you could technically enter at game week 4, have a little look at the field, have a look at who's performing, pick your team based on that. Would slightly be cheating and you would miss out on that 5%, but I'm not telling you what to do. Either way, if you want to sign up for FanTeam, hit the link in the description below. Of course, you do have to be 18 plus and full terms and conditions do apply. Anyway, it's We Need to Talk. Let's talk about selling players. Now, before we get into this week's episode, 4,000 likes is the goal as ever. Let's hit it, and we're going to get Patrick Van Straten back on Sunday Vibes this week. I've had a call, like what's her name? Marina Graviskaya of Football Daily. Pato, can you come back? Oh, if I have to. I don't really want to, but I will. Cheers, mate. Thanks. 4,000 likes, and that will happen. Anyway, on to the show, because it's T-minus 19 days now, maybe 18, something like that, until the transfer window closes, slams shut. And I'll be honest, players are getting away with murder. Teams are not able to sell some absolute whiffers. So what I thought would be a good idea was I took to Twitter, as I do most weeks, asking for your suggestions, and I wanted to know one player your club should sell that I can then react to and put into a ranking tier list. There was quite a lot of responses, hundreds of responses, so I've picked the most common names for each team. I'm then going to put them in categories, alright? We're talking from a decent idea all the way down to a whiffer. If you've suggested a whiffer, you're getting called out. Okay, the Arsenal fans on Twitter suggested Alexandre Lacazette. What to do about a problem like Lacazette? Now, Arsenal don't have an awful lot of high-value assets they're willing to sell. Joe Willock is out the door. It looks like those personal terms have finally been agreed, Newcastle fans. In fact, by the time this video goes out, he might actually officially be a Newcastle player for about £25 million. I'd say Alexandre Lacazette is another one of the players that Arteta might see as a sellable asset. Now, Alexandre Lacazette's contract is up in the summer of 2022. He's only got 1 year left on it, so it really is shit or bust now for Arsenal. I think this is actually quite a good plan. I think if you could sell Lacazette and bring in a slightly younger striker, maybe even put those funds towards James Maddison, allow Aubameyang to play through the middle and use Martinelli and Balogun as the backups, that does feel slightly light. I think it might be a good idea. This is the last time they're going to get a chance to get any money for him. It's not the worst shout I've heard, and definitely not the worst suggestion on this list. So I'm going to put it in good plan. Whether or not they'd use that money to sign Tammy Abraham, on the other hand, remains to be seen. I think that would be a slight upgrade. Let me have it. Aston Villa up next then. The fans are having a bit of a set too on my Twitter. Anwar El Ghazi was heavily suggested. People were basically saying, look, he's 26, 10 league goals, and I think 28 league starts last season. His value is never going to be higher. We should cash in now, is what Villa fans were saying. And they do have quite strong wide options. You know, Bertrand Traore, Leon Bailey, Emi Buendia can play wide. Ollie Watkins can play wide now that Danny Ings might play through the middle. But I do think the depth that Anwar El Ghazi brings might be needed this season. You know, 1 or 2 injuries and you're looking really thin. So I think this is actually a poor shout. I think the depth, especially post-Grealish, is crucial. Don't sell any more sort of attacking wide players. Brentford fans, there wasn't many of them, I'm not going to lie, and one of them suggested Pontus Jansson. So I just thought I would say you're an absolute whiffer, the Brentford fan that suggested Pontus Jansson, the captain of the club, who's just brought you up to the Premier League for the first time in history. You want to sell him. Get out! Get out. Brighton fans, a few of you on Twitter were saying Neil Maupay, and I think this is actually a bit of a horrible shout. I'm not going to lie. I think this is in between whiffer and poor shout. Yes, he didn't have his best season last year. We all know what happened. I think 8 league goals in the end. He underperformed by about 5 or 6. The expected goals had him closer to 13, and Brighton's attack was pretty malfunctioning, if that's the right word. They didn't score at the rate they should have been scoring, but he's only 24, and I don't think it happens again. Expected goals is a metric that tells you what is going to happen over a long period of time, roughly. And I think backing Neil Maupay is the right option. He will come good. I think it's a poor shout to sell him. Burnley fans said Matej Vydra. Now, his contract's also up, like Lacazette in 2022. I don't think this is a great shout either. Burnley have one of the thinnest squads in the Premier League. We all know it. I actually think Matej Vydra might start the opening few games of the season up front alongside Chris Wood. Especially if you look at Burnley's pre-season form, it seems to be trending that way. Not a huge amount of goals in the Premier League. A very proven player at a championship level. And I'm sure some championship clubs would take Matej Vydra in a heartbeat. But I think, again, this is a poor shout. He will provide depth. He might not contribute massively in goals, but Sean Dyche obviously loves his work rate. I think at 29, it's just not worth the £1 or £2 million you get for him. Poor shout. Chelsea fans were a bit torn, weren't you, boys? You wanted Tammy Abraham out, quite a few of you, and also quite a few of you wanted Hakim Ziyech out. Now, this I again feel is harsh because he's had a really, really good pre-season. That injury in the Super Cup, so unlucky, man. It feels like it happened at the start of last season. He was injured, and now it's happened again. Just when he's finding form, he seems to pick up these niggly little injuries. I actually think he probably would have started the season for Thomas Tuchel, but with the depth they've got, Werner, Pulisic, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Havertz, Mason Mount, all potentially wanting to play in that sort of attacking triumvirate that's also going to feature Romelu Lukaku now. Ziyech does feel slightly out of place given how hard-working and high-pressing Tuchel wants that side to be. If you can recoup 30 of the 35 you got for him, I think it's an average idea. I won't say good plan because he is still an exceptional talent when fully fit. So average, I'm putting Hakim Ziyech. So unlucky, man. So unlucky. I think he would have actually started the season. I'm pretty gutted for him. Crystal Palace fans, Wilf Zaha. That's what they were going for, Wilf Zaha. Now, I think the reasoning behind Crystal Palace fans saying Wilf Zaha is his contract's up in 2023. So if you let him run it down to the final year, which would be next summer, the fee is going to be hugely reduced. This is the last chance to sort of get a blockbuster fee for Wilf Zaha, who is 28 now. And yes, he was still incredibly important to Crystal Palace last season, but we have seen them reinvest money very smartly this summer. Michael Olise, Joachim Anderson, Mark Guehi. And a few Palace fans were kind of suggesting to me that they might be able to get 60, 70 million for Zaha and reinvest that well into 2 or 3 young, exciting talents. I think you're going to struggle to get 60 or 70 million for Wilfried Zaha in this current market from any buyer. I'm sorry, I just don't see it happening. It's not a whiffer of a shout. Again, I think it's an average idea. Because I can see Palace fans thinking the recruitment has been excellent this season. However, on the other hand, he is a vital cog to this side, especially with Eze's injury. I think it was 13 goal involvements last season, wasn't it? So I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle, a sort of average shout. Everton fans, we're going Moise Kean. I have to say, I think this is a good plan. I think now's the time to cash in on Moise Kean. I don't think it's going to work for him at Everton. I saw this week that he deleted all of his Instagram posts containing any reference to Everton, and his profile pictures are loading, but he did keep his Juve pictures and his PSG pictures. I think he probably wanted to go back to PSG. That's not going to happen now they've signed Leo Messi. So yeah, do you know what? I'm actually going to bump it up to decent idea. I think if you can get 25 million, maybe 30 million out of Italy, that's a huge push for me. But probably just cut your losses. If Benitez persists with the 4-2-3-1 that we saw against Pumas and we saw against Manchester United, I don't see there being any space. I don't think he wants to be there. I think you could get a fee, maybe not as much as I've just said then, out of Italy. cut your losses. Leeds fans were suggesting Helder Costa, who is one of the most frustrating players in the league to watch. He just loves to give the ball away, doesn't he? Loves it. And I don't think he's quite good enough as the sort of first reserve alongside, who is it, Poveda there behind Jack Harrison and Rafinha. I think it's probably a good plan to get a fee for him now, to be totally honest with you. He did feature 22 times in the league last season, and I only really see Leeds selling him if they could get a Noah Lang through the door or another wide player to offer some depth. But I do think it's a good plan because I'm just not quite sure Helder Costa is cut out for where Leeds want to go. If they want to compete for those European spaces, for me, not quite right. Leicester City are up next then. There was a lot of debate in the Leicester ranks as to whether or not the fans wanted to sell James Maddison. And quite a few fans were saying, look, if we can get a big fee, if we can get a Riyad Mahrez or a Harry Maguire style fee for Maddison, I trust the club to reinvest that really smartly in a player. But I think this would represent a huge risk given how creative he is in this side. Still 13 goal involvements in a pretty injury hit, COVID hit, party hit season last year. I think if you're going to get anything less than 70 million for Maddison, I wouldn't bother. I would keep him. I think he is instrumental to this side's push for a Champions League spot. Arsenal, let's say they did sell Lacazette. They've also got the Willock fee. Forget about Ramsdale early. And if you could get James Maddison, I think that would be such smart business. But I just think it would be a poor shout to sell him. I think it would be a real step backwards in what they want to achieve because he is such a good player. So, poor for me. Liverpool fans were really torn. They wanted to sell one member of the front three, obviously, because of that contractual situation. A few people saying Mane, nobody really saying Salah, and the majority selling Bobby Firmino on my timeline. And he is 30 this year. Let's have his contract runs out in 2023. However, and I think this is a big factor, I don't see Liverpool getting a huge fee for Bobby Firmino from any club across Europe right now because of the COVID situation. The Premier League is the cash-rich league right now. Ligue 1 and PSG have done their load on Lionel Messi. Spain is struggling, Germany's struggling, Italy's struggling. Who's going to pay upwards of 60 million for Bobby Firmino, which is probably what Liverpool would want? Nobody. I think this is a poor shout. You may as well now just let that deal roll down. Even if you sell him next season at 15 to 20 million pounds just to get some money through the door, it's not the worst. It's not as if he's a £100 million player that you bought in. You've had an unbelievable run with Bobby Firmino. He has done pretty much everything possible for Liverpool at the value you bought him for. I would be absolutely fine if I was a Liverpool fan with keeping Bobby Firmino and not trying to cash in on him in order to try and buy another player. At this stage, too late in the window, no real big suitors, no real big fees. Poor shout. Manchester City fans obviously were suggesting Bernardo Silva. There's been a bit of talk this week, hasn't there? Pep kind of hinting that Bernardo wants to leave. Bernardo himself, maybe a little bit of rumblings there. However, the chat that they're going to get 60 million for Bernardo Silva, I think is ridiculous. Across Europe right now, everyone's in meltdown. Spain, Italy, Germany, France, except for PSG, but they've just spunked their money on Leo Messi, meaning it would only really be a Premier League move for Bernardo Silva. And as much as I think he'd be an amazing signing for someone like Arsenal, does Bernardo Silva want to go from Manchester City to Arsenal and take a wage cut? No. However, is it a good plan? Is it a decent idea? I think it is a decent idea to sell Bernardo Silva with Jack Grealish already through the door, Phil Foden a year older, Riyad Mahrez producing an exceptional season last year. I think it is a decent idea to sell Bernardo Silva right now, especially if that cash can go towards Harry Kane. So if they can find a suitor, it is a decent idea. It's going to be tough though. Manchester United fans almost unanimously were saying Paul Pogba. Everybody seems to want to sell Pogba now, cash in, spend that money on a lights out defensive midfielder. And I can see the thinking behind it, certainly. I can see United trying to sell him and failing though. I don't think Paris Saint-Germain are going to spend 50 million on Paul Pogba when they've just bought in Lionel Messi and they can get him for free in January to sign a pre-contract. It's not going to happen. So nobody else seems to want him across Europe at the fee of 50 to 60 million pounds, which I think is a little bit of a snip. United certainly couldn't find a replacement or a direct like-for-like replacement for Paul Pogba at 50 million pounds of that talent level. United would want to spend it on a defensive midfielder like the fans seem to want to, but I think now the time is almost past where you've got to back yourselves to smash it for the next few months of the season, be in and around the title hunt at Christmas, and convince him that with Varane there, with Sancho there, with Rashford a year older, Greenwood a year older, Maguire playing his best football, Shaw playing his best football, that this is a club going in the right direction that he wants to stay at. So I think it's an average plan at this stage, just because the money's not enough for a player of his talent, and it's too late in the window to get a Wilfred Ndidi. Newcastle fans all said John Joe Shelvey. To a man said John Joe Shelvey. It seems like Joe Willock is joining the club now. That might be announced, like I said earlier, by the time this video goes out. Obviously, he is back from that sort of calf tendon problem. He is going to play a significant role this season. His contract's up until 2023. The squad depth's just so bad at Newcastle. Everything's going wrong there. I just think it's the wrong time to be thinking about selling players. Who's going to pay money for John Joe Shelvey in this market? Yeah, I think this is just a poor shout. I understand that you don't like him, Newcastle fans, but the squad is thin as it is. Norwich fans then said Teemu Pukki, a couple of them. Teemu Pukki, I feel like they were just winding me up when they said it, so I will put it in. Whiffer. I'm never saying anything bad about Teemu Pukki again. I mean, without him, where do the goals come from? Especially seeing as Emi Buendia has left the club. I know Josh Sargent's come in, Mila Rashika's come in, Todd Cantwell, they're hoping he's going to have a huge season for him, but you don't sell your star man through the middle, your goal scorer. You don't sell him if you've just come up to the Premier League. Yes, he's a Championship wonder forward. He guarantees you goals, but you signed him for free. You're going to sell him for a max of like £3 million. It's worth nothing. His goals are worth way more. Stop winding me up, because it's working. Southampton fans said Shane Long. Then, now this is an interesting one, because he's obviously, in my opinion, not good enough for Southampton's forward line. Wasn't really good enough for Bournemouth in the Championship last season. Lives offside. Not sure what he brings to the team because he doesn't add any goals. However, Danny Ings is out the door. The forward line's looking thin. I'm going to put it in good plan because I can understand why Southampton fans want him out. But without Danny Ings, that forward line's thin. Tottenham fans want Harry Winks out of the club, and I think this is a decent idea. I really do. I think you can actually get a decent fee for Harry Winks from, let's say, Everton. I think if you get 20 million from Everton for Harry Winks, that's a really good bit of business to reinvest in the squad. He's got a contract till 2024. You could sell him to Everton, as you know, England international. He's very tidy on the ball, but I don't think he's progressive enough for a Tottenham team that want to be challenging for those European spots, to be honest with you. So I think that's a decent idea to cash in right now. Watford were saying Andre Gray. Now, I saw a report earlier in the week, and then I saw a subsequent tweet, which actually did crack me up, about West Brom and Birmingham raiding Watford for Andre Gray, and somebody just replied on the tweet saying this is like robbing a bank and coming out with pens only, which I kind of think is the perfect summary of a move like this. Andre Gray leaving, fine. I don't think it would be a huge problem. Depends on the fee. Yes, it's a good idea, isn't it? West Ham fans were saying Yarmolenko here. Now, I think they were saying Yarmolenko because he's like the top earner at the club, or one of the top earners at the club on a ridiculous salary. He's in the final year of his contract, so this is the last chance to get a fee from him. If you can sell him, you should this summer. I agree with this one. I think this is a decent idea. However, again, I don't see anyone paying big money for him, given that that contract is whiffing. I don't know. Could you get him out to Turkey? Could you get him out to Russia or somewhere like that? I'm unconvinced you're going to be able to produce that move because of the salary you've given him. Cost £22 million. If you can recoup any of that, you've done well. Finally, Wolves fans, I think this was just one Wolves fan, I can't remember his name, said Connor Cody, because Bruno Lage might play a back four and Connor doesn't suit the back. Shut up. Heart and soul of Wolves he is. Club captain. Wolves running through his blood. That is as much of a whiffer as Pontus Jansson, if not more. That's the biggest whiff of the day. Connor Cody you want out? I've had enough of football Twitter, man. Alright, so that was it for today's episode of We Need to Talk. Me reacting to your suggestions of one player your club should sell this summer. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. 4,000 likes and we're getting Pato back on Sunday. Vibes. Speak it into existence. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye.